So, good evening YouTube, and welcome back to the Airborne Lawyer YouTube channel, and welcome to Frankfurt, where we start today's flight. And we are in the brand new Airbus A320, which has been developed by FENIX Simulations. We're currently just sat in the cabin ahead of departure, which I just thought was quite a nice place to start. One thing I was just going to show you here is just how detailed this aircraft is. So just by way of an introduction to how good this add-on is, take a look at this. Everything here is simulated, which is what you kind of expect. It's a study level add-on, as they call it. But there are some tiny details which I'm just going to show you, which just shows just how well they've done this. So here we have the iPad. This is known as the electronic flight bag, the EFB, but it's basically an iPad, and it's a perfectly modelled iPad. You've got the button just here, and you've got various things you can do. And it does lots of useful things for flying, which is great. But it's so detailed that if I unplug this, the little charge symbol, the lightning bolt, goes here until I put it back on charge again. I know that's the tiniest of details, but that kind of thing is really special. I think that's just amazing. And similarly, other tiny details. I can turn on the seatbelt sign just here. Hear the nice chime as it goes on. And then when you go in the cabin, you can see up here that the seatbelt sign is now illuminated. If I go back into the cockpit, turn off the seatbelt sign and turn off the no smoking sign, those lights, well actually no smoking is still on, but the seatbelt sign has gone off. So it's incredibly well done, just down to the tiniest details. And it looks great outside as well as inside. We are today flying in Lufthansa livery, and we are, as I say, in Frankfurt. Terminal 1 today. I very often, as some of you may know, very often fly with in British Airways livery, and British Airways fly over to Terminal 2 just over there. But I am today in the Lufthansa livery of the Airbus A320, and our destination today is Insbruck. So let's take a look at our route so you can see where we're going to be going. It's not a long flight. This is the map of today's flight. We are where the pink arrow is, so we're over in Frankfurt am Main. We're going to be heading directly south over Heidelberg, and then we're going to be heading southeast into Austria, deep into the Austrian Tyrol, landing into Innsbruck. Innsbruck is by no means an easy place to fly to at the best of times. It's deep in the mountains, and it's going to be a fun place to try and get into. So particularly because we are expecting to approach Innsbruck via runway 08, which I'm just going to talk you through now. So this is real world flight radar. This is Frankfurt right here. If we head south and go down towards Innsbruck, which is just down here, you can see, in fact, just on the map kind of contours here, you can see it's deep in a mountainous valley, and the runway runs pretty much directly east to west. And ideally, I prefer to approach from this side and fly in this way, because they've got an instrument landing system that way, which will help me in. But the winds are blowing at 070 degrees at 4 knots. So that means the winds are blowing towards the west, which means I need to fly against the wind on approach. So I'm going to be landing in this way. There is no instrument landing system that way, and that will make it a little bit trickier. So more on that obviously as we go. I will monitor the weather once we're underway, in case there is any change to that. In addition, I will be providing some in-flight entertainment on this flight. To give you a little teaser of that, I have, as promised on a recent live stream, found a mod which is a Mercedes AMG, which I will be driving later on during the stream. It looks great. Its performance is, if I'm honest, going to be slightly disappointing, I suspect, because it doesn't perform anywhere near as it looks, but it certainly looks good. And in addition, I am going to be, later on, I will be showing you some shots of Frankfurt and also Innsbruck, where we are heading to today. So let's jump back in the cockpit. I think there's an aeroplane moving around. There's certainly something making a lot of noise near here. There we are. Oh, I see. I don't know if you heard that. I had to turn it down actually, but there is another Airbus reversing right behind us, and the noise just suddenly took me by surprise in my right headphone. Worth noting, by the way, that since the last live stream I have been doing a bit of work to get the model matching sorted on MSFS 2020. So model matching is how I make it so that that plane is a Lufthansa and, you know, all other planes are the correct livery as well. So there's another Lufthansa over there. Earlier on we had a Turkish Airlines plane in here as well. But I've now got all of these lovely liveries rather than default AI graphics, which is good. So let's jump back in the cockpit where it's a wee bit quieter, and we'll finish setting up the plane. So what I'm going to do to start with is load the aircraft with passengers and fuel. I can do that from the iPad here, so I'm just going to do that nice and quickly. I have got a lot of the plane already set up. I'm not going to do a full cold and dark setup on this live stream. I've turned on all my inertial reference systems. I've got various lights and other systems on, like probe heat and emergency exit lights are all armed and all that kind of stuff. So that's all looking good. Down here in the flight management computer, I've initiated the flight. I've put in the flight plan, or certainly as much of it as I can at the moment, and what you can see is the beginnings of my flight plan appearing on the map here. So you can just see a dotted green line just down there of an incomplete flight plan. The colours, incidentally, that's a terrain map which I can put on here, which is going to be quite important given we are flying into some very challenging terrain down in Innsbruck. So good evening to Ian, good evening to John as well. Ian, I thought you would like the AMG. I couldn't believe my luck when I found a Mercedes AMG mod for flightsim 2020. So, as I say, I am concerned you're going to be slightly disappointed at the performance of the Mercedes AMG because it doesn't perform like your Mercedes. But nonetheless, it's quite fun and I think you'll enjoy it. And John, good to see you online. I hope Hayley is doing well. So, what I'm also delighted to say this evening is that we have some air traffic controllers on, and we certainly did at the point I started the stream. So I'm going to do a couple of things. We've got the very good people of Langen Radar, our German friends from VATSIM, who are manning air traffic control in Frankfurt this evening. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just get a weather report from Frankfurt ATIS.
Tell.
Sounds
Met report
like
time 1950 Zulu. Expect vectors for ILS approach runway 25 left, or ILSY approach runway 25 right. Runways in use 1825 center 25 left and 25 right. Transition level 60. Wind 190 degrees 3 knots. Cav OK. Temperature 22. 2.12 QNH 1023 trend. No SIG Frankfurt Information Hotel. Out.
Okay, so that's a very realistic rendition of what ATIS sounds like, which is basically Automated Traffic Information Service. And that told me various things. I know it gabbles away quite quickly, but what it told me is that it's Information Hotel, which is the identifier of this information stream. If the weather changes, they'll give it a new identifier, like Information India, Information Juliet, Information Kilo, and so on. I'm going to expect a departure runway of runway 18. Transition level is flight level 60 or 6,000 feet. The winds are 190 at 3. temperature is 22 degrees and the QNH is 1023, which actually I've already got here for the altimeter. The QNH is the barometric pressure, which drives the altimeter and tells us how high we are. So I've now got the latest weather information, which means I'm going to go ahead and call up Frankfurt delivery to get my departure clearance. So I've tuned into the frequency, and I'm just going to give them a moment to make sure no one else is chatting on the frequency. It doesn't sound like they are, so let's give this a shot. Frankfurt delivery, good evening. Lufthansa 6918, Airbus A320, stand A24, information hotel on board and QNH 1023, requesting clearance to Innsbruck.
6918, hello, information hotel correct, Innsbruck, ANEQ1 Lima, flight plan route, climb bias at 4000 feet, scope 1000.
Lufthansa 6918 cleared Innsbruck, Aneki 1 Foxtrot departure, climb via SID 4000 feet and squawking 1000.
6918, feedback correct, report ready.
Roger, 6918. Okay, so what we've just got there is our departure clearance, which was exactly as expected. So let me quickly show you back on the Navigraph again here. We're just at the top here, you can see kind of a summary of our route. EDF is Frankfurt, we're departing on runway 18, and we've got this Aneki 1 Foxtrot departure. So this is what our departure route looks like. It's pretty boring, to be honest. It's just a straight line south. But what you can see here is the layout of the runways at Frankfurt. So they've got 3 runways heading in a slightly southwesterly direction. It's kind of west-southwest. And then you've got one heading directly south. That's runway 18, so we're going to take off on runway 18 and head straight south and then just follow it all the way down. What he also told me is that I need to climb initially to 4,000 feet and I need to squawk on my transponder 1000. So I'm just going to detune the air traffic controller so I don't have too much background noise. So I'm going to select 4,000 feet here in the autopilot, and down here this is the transponder. I'm going to clear the 2,000 and replace it with 1,000. With my transponder working, that will allow the air traffic controller to see me on his radar screen. It will give him a little dot which will also tell him what altitude I'm doing, what speed I'm doing, and it will provide my flight number, which is Lufthansa 6918. So that's all good, but what we also need to do is update our flight plan here in the flight management computer. So this all looks pretty archaic, to be honest, all the green and white text, but it's quite logical once you get the hang of it. EDDF is the ICAO code for Frankfurt. If I click on EDDF here, I get the option to select a departure, and we're going to depart from runway 18, and we are going via Aneki 1 Foxtrot, and I can go ahead and say insert. Just been joined here in the cockpit once again by my good friend Briar, the golden retriever. He's taking a moment to stick his nose out the window. Poor fella, it's been so hot the last couple of days in the UK that he doesn't know what to do with himself. So yeah, runway 18 via Aneki 1 Foxtrot, that gives us then a completed flight plan. So if I go back here, you can now see a nice solid green line, and it's going to go all the way to Innsbruck. So that's good. That's what we want. Now, when setting up the flight management computer, you follow a mnemonic, however they say that, which is diffrips. D is for data, I is for init, F is for flight plan, R is for radios, I is again for init, and then P is for perf or performance, and S is secondary flight plan. Now, coming back to init here, there are 2 pages to init. The second one requires me to put in my full weight and centre of gravity once the plane is fully loaded. Now, just looking at the iPad over here, you can see that we've still got a few empty seats. So we will just wait for boarding to complete, and we will get a notification when that's done before I complete the init page. I can, however, in the meantime just sort out the secondary flight plan. The secondary flight plan is one I'm going to use in the event of an emergency. So I could easily just switch over and then do a return to Frankfurt. So in the secondary flight plan, I'm going to say new destination of Frankfurt, and if I come back to Frankfurt, I'm going to expect to land on ILS 25 left and no arrival route. It's just for emergencies. Very unlikely it will need to be used. I think I've only ever had to do that once before. So interestingly enough, John, who's one of our regular viewers who loyally tunes in to many of my live streams, tells me that EDDF for him is also a work acronym, meaning Electronic Digital Distribution Frame. Well, John, I'm going to have to leave you to do a live stream on exactly what an electronic digital distribution frame is, but it's quite coincidental that we both come across that acronym in our lives. So where are we? Is boarding complete yet? Have we got a few stragglers? No, boarding is now complete. Love this. See, it even looks like it's on an iPad. Like it's kind of the iPad text and everything. So I'm going to dismiss that. Boarding is now complete. Now over here you'll see we've got ZFW. That means zero fuel weight. So in other words, take out all the fuel. What is the weight of this plane? The answer to that is 61,043 kilograms. So what I'm going to just do over here is abbreviate that. If I go back to this init page, I can put in 61 point, sorry, memory like a sieve, 61 point, well it'll be 61.1 to one decimal place. 61.1 and put in a slash, and the centre of gravity is 31.1. Not quite sure how that's calculated, but that is the number I have to put in here. I type that in, drop it in there, and that bit's done. I also have to put in how much fuel I've got on board. If I click on the fuel button just over on the right hand side here, you can see FOB, fuel on board, is 4,760 kilograms. So I'm going to put in 4.8, again to just abbreviate that down, and pop that in there. Okay, so let's go back now to that mnemonic. So diffrips data is done. I did this actually just before the stream started. Init, page 1 is done. Flight plan is done. Radios are done. I've tuned into Frankfurt and Mannheim, which is a little bit to the south of here. So just to show you what that does, I can click over these and it will give me a distance reading for the two radios I've tuned into. It's not actually currently picking up Mannheim, but it does have Frankfurt. The Frankfurt radio beacon is 2.8 nautical miles away. So I've done radios. I've done the second page on init with the weights and centre of gravity. And I've also done the secondary flight plan, so I've just got that P of diffrip, the second P, to do. And that's performance, which is all about how fast we need to go in order to take off. Now, for this, again, I can do all of this on the iPad, which is just brilliant. So looking over here, I can sync the load sheet, so that just puts the latest weights into the iPad. I can sync the latest weather, and then I can hit calculate. And over here, it kind of gives me a miniature screen of what I need to put into the FMGC. So V1 is 150, rotate is 150, and we'll leave the ground at 154. 150, 150, 154. So I'm going to type that in over here. The challenge will now be in remembering it for the few seconds I have in between. 150, 150, 154, there we go. And flaps will be at 2, and the trim setting will be down 0.3, so 2/DN.3 really is quite old-fashioned how you do all of this. Flex takeoff temp is 68 degrees. I don't quite know how flex takeoff temperature works, but it's to do with preserving engine life. It means that we'll have a slightly less powerful takeoff because the plane isn't that heavy. And finally, from our weather information a little while ago, we found out that transition level was 6,000 feet. So I'm going to put that in there. So that is it. The flight management computer is now all done. We are pretty much ready to go. So what I'm now going to do is close up the door, In fact, the doors are closed. I'm going therefore to remove the jetway. If I hit toggle jetway, with a fair, there we go, there it goes. And what we're now going to do is turn on the APU. That is the auxiliary power unit, which means that the plane can run under its own power. Just on the second FMGC, I've received a message with my load sheet, which I'm going to accept. Don't need to do anything with that. And what we can also now do is a checklist. It is so great having all of this right here on the iPad. So if I go down here to my documents, I've got my checklist. So cockpit preparation is complete. Barometric reference, we've set the correct pressure. ACARS, that's all to do with the transponder. That's all working fine. Parking brake is currently set. We've got enough fuel on board to get down to Innsbruck. We've done the init page B, that's that second init page where you put the weights in. We've set the flex temp. We've calculated our takeoff speeds. Now, just whilst the APU is warming up, I'm going to turn on the seatbelt signs. In fact, they already were on. Oh, don't tell the Civil Aviation Authority, because you're not meant to have the seatbelt signs on whilst you're fueling. Could get into trouble for that. I'm also going to switch on the beacon. That's the red flashing light on the top of the plane and also underneath. And the transponder is on, and I've set the code that I was given by air traffic control. And all doors obviously need to be closed. Not only are all doors closed, but this is fantastic again, fantastic detail on this add-on. The word slide appears to tell me that the emergency slides are all armed. It's just a nice touch. Okay, so the checklist all looks good. The APU is now available. It's at 100 and it says avail. So that means I'm going to switch on the APU bleed and I'm going to turn off external power. And going back to the iPad, I'm now going to disconnect GPU, which is ground power unit, and remove the chocks and cones. So just a quick look outside. That loud hissing noise is the APU at the back of the plane. You can now see that we are pretty much ready to go. Again, just a lovely bit of detail here. If I go up to the APU, you can see the heat shimmer coming out the back of the plane, which is just great. Look at this. Hopefully you can just about see that. It's just such a nice bit of detail, that. So having done the checklist, what I'm now going to do is bring up the map, and I'm going to bring up my charts. I can obviously show you the Navigraph screen separately, but this is great. Having the charts right here on the iPad is brilliant, and you can see where we are just there, that little blue arrow. So again, here's a nice map of the airport, and there's runway 18. We're going to be taxiing out this way and then taking off directly to the south, so it shouldn't take too long. Okay, so the departure air traffic controller at Frankfurt delivery asked me to call him again when I was fully ready, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to retune to his frequency. Ian, you're concerned that the AMG is not going to be complicated enough for me to drive. Well, let me put it this way. Because this is a flight simulator, I had to steer it with my feet and control the speed with a throttle lever. So in some respects it was quite complicated, but we will see that very, very shortly. Right, let's just give the delivery controller a call and tell him that we're fully ready and all set to push back and start.
And the delivery, this is Lufthansa 630, request push. 630, squawk 2047. 2047, delivery 630.
Frankfurt delivery, Lufthansa 6918, also fully ready, request push and start.
Lufthansa 6918, just confirm your call for startup push.
Roger.
6918, startup approved, hold position for pushback, contact apron 121, decimal 850, bye.
Startup approved and contact apron 12185 for pushback clearance, Lufthansa 6918. Okay.
The 630 start approved.
So I'm now switching over to ground on 121.85. John, you're quite right. There's no autopilot on the AMG. We will see that very shortly. I'm now going to call up the ground controller, a different air traffic controller this time, and ask for clearance to push and start. Or to push back. I have clearance to start my engines, but let's ask for a pushback clearance. Frankfurt apron, Lufthansa 6918, stand Alpha 24, request push. Going to start the engines now.
Lufthansa 6918, Frankfurt apron, hello, pushback approved, face west.
Pushback approved, face west, Lufthansa 6918. Okay.
And delivery, this is Lufthansa 330, request push.
So I'm going to connect up the ground top.
630 Frankfurt apron, hello, pushback approved, face west.
Apron, good night, Lufthansa 6 Romeo.
Pushback approved, face west, Lufthansa 630.
So
Lufthansa 630 second.
that is quite loud in my ear, so I'm just going to turn that down a fraction. So you do all of this through the
Lufthansa 630 second.
iPad again. So I've connected up the tug, and I'm now going to start pushing back. So here we go.
Exactly. Lufthansa 6 Whiskey Romeo Frankfurt apron, hello, taxi to gate Alpha 66 via standby hot position.
I'm going to have to turn that down a bit in my ear, actually. That's really loud.
So again, push the wrong button.
Lufthansa 6 Whiskey Romeo position.
Right, so we're just waiting. There we are. Engine number 2 is now started. It just said avail, meaning available. So I'm now going to start engine number 1.
Lufthansa 6 Whiskey Romeo taxi to gate Alpha 66 via November 15 Lima November 8.
This takes a bit of practice because in this aircraft you do all the pushback inputs yourself. So I think now is around about the time. Yeah, I was going to try turning it now. Let's see if the goal is to land on this yellow line just here. Let's see how we get on.
Say again, please.
Lufthansa 6 Whiskey Romeo taxi to gate Alpha 66 via November 15 Lima November 8.
Oh, that is not bad, look. There's the yellow line. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So I'll straighten up there now.
Lufthansa 6 Whiskey
And
Romeo, it's November 8
I will stop the
instead of
push.
November 6, so November 15 Lima November 8.
November 15 Lima November 8. Lufthansa 6 Romeo.
Okay. And reset the parking brakes.
And ground Lufthansa 360, there's something wrong with their push back. Just give us a second.
So, just a few extra things to do before we taxi out. I'm going to check all control surfaces. So fully right, fully left,
Lufthansa 630 Roger, cancel pushback clearance.
forward and back on the yoke. Check the spoilers are working. Check the rudder is working.
Just continue the pushback.
Continue pushback, Lufthansa 60.
And then I'm going to arm the speed brakes, and I need to set the takeoff trim, which is going to be down 0.3, which is tiny, but I'm just reading that there. Pitch trim 0.3 down, which is the same as it says there, down 0.3. So I've just set that now correctly.
Lufthansa 6 Whiskey Romeo, you made a right turn instead of a left one. Now
I'm now going to set the takeoff flaps.
November 8 to gate Alpha 66.
They need to be set to 2.
November 8. Ja. So, ich bin ein bisschen durcheinander gerade.
I'm going to set the auto brakes to maximum, just in case we have to abort the takeoff. With both engines started, I'm now going to turn off the APU, and I'm going to turn on the taxi lights. And I think that's pretty much everything done. I can check that by hitting the takeoff config button just there, and when you hit takeoff config, just down here, you get this list of green things. If there's anything which isn't green, it tells you what you need to do. So auto brakes are set, cabin signs are on, cabin is ready, spoilers are armed, flaps are set for takeoff. Okay, so we're ready to taxi now. So I will call the ground controller and ask for our taxi instructions. Frankfurt apron, Lufthansa 6918, request taxi.
Lufthansa 6918, taxi to holding point runway 18 via November 7 November, give way to company Airbus A320 on November 8.
Taxi holding point 18 via November 7 November, giving way to the company A320 at November 8, Lufthansa 6918. Okay. So, parking brake can go off. And just a little bit of breakaway power, and away we go. So once we're underway, I am going to show you some scenery of Frankfurt. We're going to drive the Mercedes AMG around Innsbruck, and I will also give you a bit of scenery to enjoy of the mountains in Innsbruck, give you a sense of what we're flying into. So, as all the best commercial radio presenters say, don't go away. Plenty more to come. I mean, you certainly hope there is plenty more to come, since we haven't even got in the air yet. There is the other Airbus A320. So the air traffic controller said, give way to the company Airbus A320. When they say company, that means the same airline as you. So he's asked me to give way to that aircraft, wherever he is going. Presumably straight on. Yeah, he is. Okay, good.
Lufthansa 6918, continue taxi.
Continue taxi, Lufthansa 6918. Now, slightly difficult for me to tell which one is November 7 and which one's November 8, to be honest. But I'm gonna do this, since I had to give way to him. It must be this one. So my taxi instructions are November 7, November, to the holding point for 18.
Sorry, ich lock mich jetzt einfach mal aus mit dem Ding. Ich habe keine Markierung gerade jetzt für die Gate.
Oh, bit of German. Lovely. So you then look at these yellow signs.
Oh, danke schön für den Service.
And
Du könntest, das ist das zweite auf deiner linken Seite, wenn du willst, fahr da noch rein, sonst
sorry, this is quite confusing, having German being spoken loudly in my left-hand ear and trying to speak at the same time. So this is now taxiway November. Made a minor error there because I was told to go down November 7, and in fact I went down November 8, but that's no big deal. And now we're going to follow November all the way to the holding point for runway 18. Might help if I just give you a little bit more detail on what this looks like. Let me just take you over to the Navigraph display quickly. So we were parked up here, so we've taken November 7 and now we're on November, which is along here. If I use this display, you can see where we are, and we're going to go all the way along November and pull up just at the end here. That is the holding point for runway 18. So fun fact about Frankfurt Airport whilst we're taxiing. I go to Frankfurt quite frequently because I go for work purposes, so I've come to know Frankfurt quite well. Looking at Frankfurt, you can see it has 4 runways, but only 3 are fully operational. You can only take off from runway 18, and you can only land on runway 25 right. That is to say, you can't take off from this end, you can't land on runway 18 up at this end either. And this runway here is only used for landings. So they've got this fairly unique situation where 2 of their runways are kind of limited use. One is takeoffs only, and the other one is landings only. So you heard it here first. Fascinating facts to accompany our evening of flight.
Lufthansa 6918, contact tower 119.9. Have a nice flight, bye-bye.
I've also just brought the taxi map up on the iPad over here. Such a good feature. And you can see there that we are now quite close to the end of runway 18. So we will shortly be passed over to the tower. That's 119.9 on the radio. So I'll tune that in.
Lufthansa 6918 Frankfurt, FM.
Lufthansa 6918, go ahead.
Lufthansa 6918, contact tower 118 correction 119.9, I have enough flight, bye bye.
119.9, Lufthansa 6918, thanks. Okay, so he has now passed me over to the tower, and they will give me my takeoff clearance.
69.
Langen Radar are brilliant, by the way. Langen Radar operate Frankfurt Airport from an air traffic control perspective, and the Langen Radar controllers on VATSIM are just fantastic. It's one of the reasons I come to Frankfurt a lot on my flight sim, because the controllers are just so professional. And it's so authentic when you're talking to someone who is German whilst you're flying to Frankfurt. Just adds to the immersion. Frankfurt Tower, Lufthansa 6918, holding ready for departure, end of runway 18.
So 6918 tower low, wind 23 degrees 5 knots, runway 18, clear takeoff.
Clear takeoff, runway 18, Lufthansa 6918. Okay, so we've got our takeoff clearance. I can now turn on the landing lights, turn on the strobes, turn on the wing lights. We'll get the timer underway as well. So runway verified, nice big 18 painted on the tarmac, so we know we're on the right one. And what I'm just going to do is gently move the throttles up to 50% of N1, which I'm just reading using the top dials here.
Taxi Mike and Tango, hold short Tango 4.
Just a little bit of forward pressure on the stick, and now I'm going to set it into the climb detente. It's a very special throttle on the Airbus. I'll talk you through it in a bit more detail just in a few moments' time. So now releasing the forward pressure on the stick and waiting to hit V1. I'm just looking at my primary flight display here. When I get to that marker on the speed indicator, I need to pull back. There we are, V1, and rotate, and away we go. Positive rate, gear up. And now I'm just following the flight directors, which is the green cross on the primary flight display just in front of me here.
So 6918, contact Langen Radar 1208, bye bye.
120.8, Lufthansa 6918.
2 Charlie X-ray, contact A.
So 120.8 is our next controller. Langen Radar, good evening. Lufthansa 6918 with you, climbing through 1900.
Lufthansa 6918, low climb, flight level 130.
Flight level 130, Lufthansa 6918. So we've now been cleared up to 13,000 feet. I've just brought the flaps in. And the... Come on, where are we? Right, okay, fine. So I just told you about the very clever throttle on the Airbus. And what I was just doing there is getting it into a detente, so like a click bit. The throttle levers click into different settings as you go up. So at the bottom you've got like a regular thrust lever. Just, you know, you can just go from 0 to 100 on the engine. But then just beyond that, you can click it into different positions. So you've got the climb setting, which is what it's going to be in for almost the whole flight. You've then got the flex takeoff setting, which is beyond climb. And then beyond the flex takeoff setting, you've got the full takeoff power setting. So you basically go from the bottom, it sort of goes smoothly up, then you go climb, flex takeoff, full power. So you're constantly clicking it into position. The only problem with that is that the thrust levers I have here don't have those clicky detente settings, which means I have to kind of find them carefully, looking at the primary flight display at the same time.
Information India, expect ILS 25 left, Lufthansa 7 Frankfurt.
So switching over now to standard pressure on the altimeter.
Turkish 8 Charlie Golf, flight 240. Turkish 8 Charlie Golf, hello, cleared Farbour 2 Bravo arrival, descent via star, flight level 110.
So a few other after takeoff steps. We can turn off the taxi lights because obviously the wheels are all in. And it's nice and smooth, there's not a cloud in the sky, so I'm going to turn off the seatbelt signs. Unicorn 1228, thanks very much for the service. Lufthansa 6918. Right. Frankly, I'm relieved that air traffic control has gone because it is a hell of a lot to manage air traffic control alongside flying the plane and speaking to all of you. So it's now a little bit quieter, a little bit calmer, but typically professional service there from the controllers at Langham Radar. So we're now heading south. We are already 17 miles away from Frankfurt, so making good progress. And we're going to be there in absolutely no time. It's only 200 miles down to Innsbruck. It won't take us long at all. We've just gone through 10,000 feet, so we're going to turn off the landing lights now. And what we will do is take a look at the city that we've just left behind and take a look at Frankfurt. So this is what Frankfurt looks like using the drone on FlightSim to go and take a look around. This is the Main River. I was down here very recently with work, and you can see the tower blocks on the left hand side. And in fact I had an evening down by the river and took this photograph. The tower blocks in the downtown area of Frankfurt are known as Main-Hattan, as in the river Main, but with Hatton at the end, as in Manhattan, tower blocks, skyscrapers, etc. But Main-Hattan. That's German wordplay for you. That's the European Central Bank just there. And this is the real sort of business district here. A lot of big banks based in these towers. This dark building in the centre is the office block that I work in when I go to Frankfurt. This is called Omniterm. It's only been built for a couple of years. It's brand new. And I have recently been on the 41st floor of that building, where I took this little video from. Thankfully I was blessed with good weather last time I went. That's the hotel I've stayed in Frankfurt. That's the Steichenberger Hof, which is just a couple of minutes around the corner from where I work when I go to Frankfurt. And when you come out of the building you tend to find you're looking up because everything is sky high. This is a very beautiful part of Frankfurt called Alte Oper, which is literally the old opera house. Again, there's the real life footage which I just took a few weeks ago. It looks like the flight sim scenery here is kind of based in winter because the trees and what have you can just tell they're a little bit threadbare. They don't have many leaves on them. But again, the realism here is astonishing. More footage of real Frankfurt. There are a couple of famous churches and the cathedral here, and that's what it looks like on flight sim. So remarkably realistic. In fact, this square just down here, 3 weeks ago, I had an evening out with some colleagues and we had dinner down here. Just unbelievable that you can explore a city virtually in this detail. So that is Frankfurt. There's the River Main, heading off there to the east. I think Frankfurt's a lovely city. It's a great place, and you can be assured a warm welcome as well when you go to Frankfurt. I always find you literally cannot fault German hospitality. So that's Frankfurt. We'll take a look at Innsbruck in a few moments' time. Just to keep you updated on where we are on the flight, we're making very good progress already. Let's just take a quick look over at Navigraph. You can see we've made decent headway, maybe what, about a fifth of the way there already. We're just where the pink arrow is. And when we get to Innsbruck, it's going to be extremely scenic. Innsbruck is deep in the Austrian Tyrol. I think it's actually the capital of the Tyrol region. It's obviously hugely popular with people who like to ski, and when you look at this you can see why. There is the runway down there, which we're going to be making an approach into. It's surrounded by steep-sided mountains on all sides. Obviously in winter this will just be covered in snow, but it's a nice mild, I think it's about 22 degrees down there at the moment, so cooler than it is in the UK today, but still very, very mild. I've never been to Innsbruck itself in real life, but it is a fun place to go on flight sim, that's for sure, because it is obviously a challenging approach given all these mountains. That is why we will need to have the terrain radar on at all times once we approach Austria, to make sure we can see the mountains on the navigation display in the sim. Now this is the approach that I wanted to do. This is approaching from the east heading west, where you come over the city and you land on runway 26. This is the end of the runway, which has a decent instrument landing system which I could follow in and be sure to avoid all the terrain. But instead the winds have changed and we're going to have to approach from the other end and land on runway 08. But no bother, that gives us the challenge of an RNAV approach to look forward to, which we will talk through in a little bit more detail shortly. So John's asked a good question. Why on takeoff did I advance the throttle to just 50%? And that's just what you do with this particular type of jet engine. All takeoff protocols are different, I guess, but with the engines you've got on this Airbus A320, you take them up to 50% and just check that they're stable. What you're looking to do is check that the power is stable and nothing untoward is happening. So you look at your engine readouts across here, having put the throttles at 50% of N1, so you're actually going to where it says 5 there. You take the engines up to the 5 and just make sure that all the readouts are just nice and balanced and nice and stable. You haven't got anything causing an alarm to sound, and the engines are providing even power on either side. If they are, you can then proceed with the takeoff as planned, and as I say, with this novel form of throttle on the Airbus, you can advance the throttle to the climb setting. It's actually possibly worth taking a look at the throttle down here so you can see it. So here you've got your this zone is your standard throttle, and then you can see CL, which is short for climb, and a little arrow, and you can actually see that my throttle is kind of clicked into that right now. And then you've got flex MCT, that's the flex takeoff setting, which is not using full power on takeoff to preserve engine life, but if you do need to use full power on takeoff, you'd advance it all the way to takeoff go around, TOGA at the front there, or TOGA. When might you use full takeoff power? Well, you'd use full takeoff power almost certainly taking off from Innsbruck, actually, because Innsbruck has got quite a short runway, so you need full power to get off the ground. So, time then to take a look at the AMG. As I say, I found this online earlier today. Regular viewer Ian is a car fanatic and has a beautiful Mercedes in his collection. I think it is a Mercedes AMG, but Ian, do comment if I've got that wrong. And I couldn't believe my luck when Ian asked recently, can you actually drive around on flight sim? And I said, well, I think you might be able to. Let me have a look. And what car did I manage to find? I managed to find a Mercedes AMG. And earlier on today, I took it for a test drive. And this is what it looks like. Okay, so here we are in the Mercedes. I'm going to bring up a map. Let's see what else we got here. Anything else I can press? Oh, I can open up the bonnet. That's good. Can turn on some lights. Can open up the boot. Okay, that doesn't seem to wash the windscreen as the button suggests it might. You can't press any of those. What else have we got here? Oh, parking brake. Might be helpful if we turn that off. Can't seem to do anything with the gears. I assume we're in drive. It looks actually from the display like we're in park, but let's give this a shot. So obviously the controls here are configured for an aeroplane. I'm gonna steer with my feet. So I've got rudder pedals below the desk here that you can't see, and I'm going to be steering it with my feet. This isn't going to do anything, and I assume I'm going to use the throttle lever for my accelerator. So everything's kind of upside down. I'm going to steer with my feet and control the power with my hands, which is obviously the opposite to what you do in a car, but thankfully I'm quite used to that from flying aeroplanes. So here we go. The sound is interesting. It sounds a little bit more like a lawnmower, frankly, than a high-powered Mercedes. And I'm apparently doing 5,000 revs, but let's put it this way: I'm not exactly feeling any GeForce here. The torque is pretty pedestrian. We haven't even got to 40 kilometers an hour yet. So this is Flughafen Innsbruck. And what I'm just going to try and do is cut through the back here and get out of the car park and find a road. So the rev counter and the speed you get is totally out of whack. I mean, I'd imagine I would be pinned to the chair if I was doing 6,000 revs in a car like this, but okay, I seem to be in a car park. Oh, that's useful. There's a recycling bin. There's a multi-storey car park over there by the looks of it. But lots of cars parked and a lot of trees, and everything looks a little bit overgrown. And if you explore down at ground level on FlightSim 2020, this is what you tend to find. It's got this sort of strangely derelict feel to it. It looks a little bit like, you know, Chernobyl or something. Like it's been left for many, many years without human intervention. The only thing you see in these parts moving around are cars. It's like a world that has been taken over by this new form of AI. Cars. There are no humans. And at some point I'm sure we're going to see some cars driving around. They just kind of wildly go back and forth, up and down the same street. They're never going anywhere. But they just go back and forth anyway. What I'm trying to find is a road. Maybe there's a road round here. There's an electricity pylon over there, that's helpful. Let's head outside for a moment and see if there's anywhere around here that we can actually drive down. Doesn't really look like it. Let's just drive through the gap here. Now doing 7,000 revs to really, you know, really pull away. Ah, now that looks like a road. 10 kilometers an hour, 7,000 revs. Now I'm in the open. Let's go back outside and have a look using the drone. Where actually are we, other than in somebody's allotment by the looks of it? Ah, there are some roads. So I'm going to cut through that gap, and then Bob's your uncle. We should be able to get on the road and see if we can go and find Innsbruck. Provided life's not too short. Again, 5,000 revs, 15 kilometers an hour, and increasing. The sort of horsepower to speed ratio is similar to that of a car ferry, I think. And we have hit a roadblock. Okay, so I had to restart the scenario in the end to escape the allotment that we found ourselves in a short while ago. But I have now managed to pull away from the airport. The airport's a bit behind us. And I've found a road. So this road is leading me into the centre of Innsbruck. This is Innsbruck as you've never seen it before. Innsbruck 40 years after humans last inhabited it. It's a kind of overgrown, slightly derelict looking place. The only life you can hope to see is the occasional driverless cars going back and forth along the roads, never really going anywhere, just in these slightly sort of manic routes back and forth along the various virtual roads of the city. So, is this add-on great? No, it's pretty basic. It's nothing that amazing. I wouldn't exactly want to drive very far like this, and obviously I'm steering with my feet and controlling the speed with my hands, so that's not ideal. There's a car. There he is. He's just going back and forth. He'll turn around again just up there, I expect. But this is clever, and it shows what's possible. I think the biggest thing that can be said about this particular add-on is that it has real proof of concept value. And I hope that someone picks up the mantle to do something with this so that you can get add-on scenery in future, not just for the immediate area around an airport, but maybe the whole city, so that you could fly to Innsbruck or wherever you might be going, and then once you're here you can get out the aeroplane and jump in a car and drive it. This is interesting. I'm just driving up a grass verge now. I don't know where I am. Oh, hey, this looks like a big road. Maybe we can drive along here. Oh, there we are. So this is fun. At the very, very least, it's a bit of fun, and it shows what is possible in flight sim. This is not just a world you can fly in; it's a world that you could drive around in and explore to your heart's content. Oh, there's another car. Where's he going? Where's he? Nice lime green colour. Let's see where he's going. Oh, he's coming back. And there's another one. That looks a bit... Oh, that looks like a Kia e-Niro there. What a great choice of car. I think we're actually getting into the centre of Innsbruck now. Let me just pull up for a second and take a look outside and see whereabouts in the city we are. So let's just put the handbrake on to start with. So, well, you can see how far we've come. There's the airport over there. To see the flashing lights and the runway. And over here, oh yeah, we're kind of in the centre. Let's go and see if we can find the river just off the right-hand side before we jump back in to the cockpit and continue our flight. I don't know how clearly you can hear the sound here. Let me just turn it up. Doesn't sound very much like a Mercedes to me. If I had a Mercedes and it sounded like that, I think I'd want to take it in to get looked at. An interesting flight sim challenge, I think, would actually be to take an add-on like this, a car, and do some serious, cross-country rally driving. I don't know, sort of the Paris-Dakar rally or something in this car. See how far you could get and see how long it would take. I mean, yes, it's not going at any great speed here, but I wouldn't really want to go much faster than this, if I'm honest. If you like the look of this mod, and if you are a flight simmer and you want to get this for your own flight sim, just take a look at the flightsim.to website. Have a look for the drivable vehicles in their mod menu, and you will find this car there. It's completely free. Very nice. Nicely painted buildings here, red and green. Adding a bit of colour and life to an otherwise derelict scene. Oh dear, these cars are hitting a constant dead end. I said I was going to go and find the river. Are we any closer? Let's take a look. Yeah, the river's just down there. Right, here we are. Look, here's a bridge. Now this will be an interesting test. Can I get over the bridge? I suspect I can't. I don't think there'll be any structure to the bridge. I think it's just a visual. So I may end up in the river and it may be game over. But let's give it a try. Here we go. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. Oh, au contraire. This is perfect. Look, we're over a bridge now. We are over the river. No, there we go. It got the better of me in the end. I've crashed into the water. Let's get back into the cockpit and resume our flying. So, that is the Mercedes AMG. All comments in the chat gratefully received. Not very impressive on the RPM performance, to be fair, but certainly quite impressive to be able to drive around the world in that way. Meanwhile, back in the cockpit, things are happening at quite a pace here. You can see very clearly that we are now approaching the mountains. We are already into our descent. We're currently descending down to 13,000 feet. And well, let me just catch you up on where we've got to, because it's been a busy 10 minutes or so. Here's all the online pilots tonight. Plenty of us out there. And where are we? We're going to be down here somewhere. There we are. DLH, which is Deutsche Lufthansa 6918. There's Frankfurt, there's Innsbruck, so we're almost there now. And if I take you over to Navigraph, you can see the approach that we're flying. It's a very simple approach, actually. It's called the Madeb 1 Bravo approach. So we're going towards Madeb, where we need to be at 13,000 feet, and then to Elmem, where we need to also be at 13,000 feet. And then it gets tricky. We will be flying from there the Arnav Yankee approach into runway 08. And this is what that looks like. So Elmem leads into Whiskey 1811 here, or Whiskey India 811, and we follow this path in to Whiskey India 814 there. At that point, it is 100% visual. Now, obviously the weather looks to be pretty good, so it's okay, but all we've got in terms of guidance, this is why I wanted to fly the other way if possible with my instrument landing system, but I don't have that to rely on. All I've got really for guidance is this here, so I need to be at 13,000 at Elmem, 8,300 at Whiskey India 813, and then Whiskey India 814 is actually my minimum descent altitude. That is 7,100 feet. Now, I'm not even going to be able to see the runway at that point. I've just got to be able to be visual and find my own way down, which is highly unusual when you're flying an approach like this. Reading this procedure up here, it says effective external visual reference is required and must be maintained from at or before reaching the minimum approach point. So that is Whiskey India 814. So I have to have a visual reference for all the terrain, and I need to maintain that all the way in. Continue visually along the prescribed track. This is the dotted track, and it even says here the runway may not be or may not remain in sight at all times, but other visual cues surrounding the track and the vicinity may be used as sufficient external visual reference. This is all highly unusual. What it's basically saying is I'm going to be visual for most of the end of this flight. So I won't even see the runway. I'm just going to have to point the plane in the direction I think I need to go, look for the runway, and then do it entirely by sight. I'm not going to have the usual things like instrument systems on the screens in front of me here in the cockpit, or other kind of guidance to see me in. So it makes for a challenging approach. Now, I've got a few things to do quite quickly here. I've got to enter my destination data into the FMGC. So what is brilliant, again, over to the iPad, and I can bring up the METAR. This is the weather information for Innsbruck. LOWI is the code for Innsbruck. So what I can tell you is that the winds are now variable at 1 knot. So there's hardly any wind. I probably could have approached in the other direction now, but such is life. QNH is 1026 and it's 18 degrees now, so let's pop that in. 18 degrees. QNH was 1026. Again, that's the air pressure. And the winds are variable at 1 knot, so I'm just going to put 080 at 1 and put that in there. Transition level is going to be 10,000 feet, so we're going to be going through that shortly. And our minimum descent altitude, you might recall from the chart, is 7,100 feet. So minimums are going to be called very early in this flight. It's going to feel a bit unusual. But we are really close in now. So much so that I will very shortly be putting us into approach phase on the FMGC. So you can see the terrain now that we're flying into. A lot of mountains. Looking over towards Munich, I guess in that direction it's nice and flat, but it's anything but flat where we're going. And Innsbruck is in there somewhere. So let's go ahead and activate the approach phase, which will start really slowing the plane up. If I can hit that button, let me try again. There we go. So I'm ever so slightly apprehensive about this. It can be difficult getting into Innsbruck. I have had difficulty. That being said, we have at least got fantastic weather today, so we're okay in that respect. Got the speed brake fully out at the moment, just to really try and slow us down. We're reaching 13,000 feet, right on schedule at Elmem, and our next altitude to go for is 7,100, which is our minimum descent altitude. That's the point at which we're going to go fully visual. But what I'm just going to do for now is focus on slowing up. So yeah, we don't want to take this too fast. In fact, I'm just going to level off at 12,000 feet momentarily, just to make sure we really slow this down. We haven't gone through 10,000 feet yet, but I'm going to go ahead and... Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. Let me just... That's warning me because I was thinking about putting the flaps out and I hit the wrong button on the keyboard. Let's turn on the landing lights and the taxi lights and the wing lights. So we're slowing up nicely now. If I just look down here, you can see the speed is rapidly decreasing, and what that means is I'm going to now select 7,100 again into the autopilot. And there we go. And I am going to put flaps out. To really slow this up, because I'm going to have to manually weave through the mountains that we can see in front of us here, which is not going to be as easy as some approaches. It's going to be pretty tricky. Turning on the terrain radar now. We're going to see a lot of colour on the navigation display in a few moments' time, as it starts to pick up the mountains that are all around us. So I'm now going to flaps 3. And now flaps 4. So flaps are now fully out. It's quite early in the approach to do this in some respects, but the last thing I want is to do this too quickly. We are also a little steeper than I'd like to be right now. So I've just switched over to local temperature and local pressure, sorry, on the altimeter. What I'm actually just doing over here is I've selected the altitude of 7,100 and I'm telling it at the moment to descend at 2,200 feet a minute. That's minus 2,200, and we are now reaching the desired altitude of 7,100, so I can now ease off on that descent rate. Now, something to just quickly show you again on the Navigraph chart is it then tells, this is so tiny, but if I zoom in, if your ground speed is around about 140, you should be descending at about 934 feet a minute. So once I reach Whiskey India 14, or rather what is it, Whiskey India 814, I am expecting to descend at around about 900 feet a minute. Now, where is Whiskey India 814? It's just in front of us here. And you'll notice that the line goes blue. That's because that line is going to disappear because I'm going to be visual as soon as I hit that line. So I'm going to have to follow that line for myself. I can't do that on autopilot. But I need to be at 7,100 feet, and from that point on I need to be descending at around about 900 feet a minute. How do I know that? Because the chart tells me it's 934 feet a minute if I'm doing 140 knots, and I am doing pretty much 140 knots. So that's my guidance. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to select here to continue the descent down. And I'm just going to take that up to 900 feet.
100 above. Minimum.
So it has just called minimums. If I wasn't visual, if I couldn't see stuff here, I would now have to climb back up and make another approach. And I'm quite sure at certain points in winter that can happen in Innsbruck. Given they get a lot of snow, of course, during the ski season. So we're now approaching nice and slowly. The one thing I haven't done yet is put out the landing gear, but I will do that in due course. I'm just going to arm the speed brakes, and I'm going to put on medium auto brakes for our landing performance. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, you can now see that that blue line has disappeared. And there is a warning that pilots generally don't ever want to hear. Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up. But we can be fairly comfortable that we're okay here. We can see everything to start with. We are following the approach plate exactly as instructed. The runway, if you look at the map there, you can see low E08. It's just literally tucked around the corner of this bit of mountain. So I am still on autopilot at this point. It's just following the course which was set just before the line disappeared, but I am flying this using my eyes. I have no other systems available at this point in time. So everything, I think, is otherwise all set for landing. I'm now just looking, hopefully, to see the runway appear. But check out this scenery. Imagine landing here. Anyone fancy it? Anyone fancy it in the thick of winter? When it might be a blizzard outside? We could be in for a Tim Maverick Top Gun landing then. This will be hopefully a highlight and not a moment of despair. So that's the radio altimeter, which is just called out 2,500, saying we're 2,500 feet above the ground that we can see, but we're actually 4,300 feet above sea level. Okay, I can see the runway now. Just in case you can't, let me show you. It's just over there. So that's where we're headed. So we're going to do a little bit of a Hong Kong turn here, for anyone who's familiar with the history of Hong Kong Airport and Kai Tak. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm now going to turn off the autopilot, and I'm going to turn off the auto throttle and take control myself.
Terrain ahead. Pull up.
Got a lovely warning again there. Let's get the landing gear out.
Terrain ahead. Pull up.
And I have control.
Terrain ahead. Pull up. Terrain ahead. Pull
It is
up.
quite weird flying when you hear that warning sound. It's counterintuitive, really. You think you must be doing something wrong. Is this my first time landing here? John asks. I have landed at Innsbruck a few times, but to be perfectly honest, I always find it very challenging. I have had missed approaches at Innsbruck. There was one occasion I had to do something called a circle to land approach, which is exceptionally tricky. But I'm flying this entirely manually. I don't even have my flight directors on because there's nothing to really program into the flight directors landing like this. It's just all done on site. The one thing I am using are the PAPI indicators at the side of the runway, so you might be able to see at the moment there are 4 white lights left and right of the runway. Ideally, to be on the right approach path, I need to have 2 white and 2 red. 4 white means I'm slightly too steep. I can now see 3 white and 1 red, and now 2 white and 2 red, so that is now about right. I'm just guiding it in gently there. And you know, I'm flying Lufthansa. Lufthansa take this kind of stuff seriously. There's no joking around when it comes to Lufthansa, I'm sure. Even if in the virtual world. Okay, we're looking good now. Still got 2 white, 2 red. 100.
50, 40, 30, 20, retard.
Retard the throttles. And we're down. Slight bounce. And there we go. Right, reverse thrust. Some robust braking because it is a short runway, this one. And brakes to manual now. Throttles to idle. There we go. Whew. Okay. Well, that was fun. That was really fun. But I'm quite glad it's done. Right, let's pull off the runway. No air traffic controllers on at Innsbruck, and I'm quite glad there weren't, if I'm honest. Because otherwise it could have been even more complicated. So turn off the strobes, turn off the landing lights. I'm going to turn on the APU now. So, oh, thanks, John. Thanks for that. John has written in the comments, applause. Thanks very much. Appreciate that. That means a lot. So, quick show of virtual hands in the chat. Who wants to go to Innsbruck on holiday? And I say this slightly tongue-in-cheek, knowing full well that my parents are thinking of driving through Innsbruck very soon. I bet if they're watching this, I bet they're glad that they're not going to be flying in. Some lovely graphics here. Flughafen Innsbruck there, written on top of the terminal building, which is nice. Nice touch. and just spectacular scenery. But right now, at this time of year, Innsbruck Airport is extremely quiet because we're out ski season. It's right in the thick of winter when you'll suddenly have blizzards and fog and low visibility that this airport is at its busiest. I did once work with someone who went on a skiing holiday to Innsbruck, and I said before he went, I said, oh wow, Innsbruck, cool, that's going to be fun from a flying perspective. When he got back from his holiday, he said, I'm never going again. I'm never going to Innsbruck. It was terrifying. If in doubt, I don't know, fly to Munich and drive south. So we'll pull up here and we will switch over to APU power if it's all ready, which it is. So switch the APU on, which now means I can turn off the engines and turn off the seat belts. And over here on the iPad it now says I can commence deboarding, so we'll do that. We'll get a couple of sets of stairs over and open up the doors and open up the cargo doors as well. And we will switch over now to ground power because that's connected, at which point we can now turn off the APU and turn off the beacon as well. So there's a few more bits that I'll do in shutting down the plane, but let's just step outside and see the trusty steed which has got us here safely. Obviously I suppose I could have driven down from Frankfurt in the Mercedes AMG, but with the horsepower which we saw on display a little earlier on in the stream, I would have needed literally days, I think, to have completed that. This fantastic FENIX Airbus A320 has done the job instead. Flight time, oh, what was our flight time? It was 45 minutes, so really, really quick. Not long at all. 45 minutes from Frankfurt down to Innsbruck in the Airbus A320. I think the first of many occasions I'll be flying the Airbus on the channel. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Please do hit the like button if you have enjoyed watching it this evening. It's never too late to hit like, and of course never too late to hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. It'd be great to have you join us as a subscriber. And do look out for more long and short haul flying here on the channel on both Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 and on Prepare 3D V5. I will speak to you very, very soon. Bye for now.